It was a great restaurant. I've always liked it. I like the atmosphere, the food, and the acoustics. So many restaurants these days use this unfinished look to the ceiling, which kills the acoustics and increases and reflects the noise level to the point where you can't enjoy a quiet conversation over dinner. It was an old house that had been converted into an upscale steakhouse. They've kept some of the original rooms, so there are 7 separate dining areas on 2 levels, each with around 6 tables spaced well apart to provide a pleasing degree of intimacy. It was a great place for a romantic dinner. I have to say that I didn't enjoy my romantic dinner tonight. I was having dinner with my wife Sarah. She and I were sitting at a table in one of the dining rooms on the lower level. She was moving around a lot, rarely looking at me, and seemed nervous and afraid. But I also saw determination. I haven't spoken a word since arriving here, other than what was needed to get me seated and drinks ordered. I was studying the menu, trying to decide between the blackberry fillet and the beef tenderloin tornado with Bordeaux sauce. I sipped my single malt on ice and eyed my wife. She was still a physically beautiful woman, smart and successful, and until recently I would have died for her, but I no longer felt the same way. She didn't know about the change in my attitude, but I would have ruined her plans for that evening by telling her this news, among others. John, it's me, John Archer. I'm 49 years old and a fairly successful software executive. I've been married to Sarah for 28 years. I wanted to talk to her about something. I thought it would be a nice change. She looked at me with slight indignation, her mouth twisted in irritation. I hoped that my attitude would calm her nerves and make it easier for her to talk to me. At last, she blurted out what I knew she wanted. Thank you for your sarcasm, John. I've always been attracted to you. Thank you, Sarah. But in this case, I wasn't being sarcastic. I didn't elaborate. I held her gaze as I took another shot of whiskey until she looked to her left and saw the waiter approaching. I didn't wait for the lady to order first, as usual. Instead, when the waiter arrived at the table, I handed him my menu and ordered the F with blackberries and Spanish rice. Sarah was surprised by my apparent disregard for nobility and quickly scanned her menu before deciding to order a salad. Who orders a salad at an award-winning steakhouse? John. When the waiter left, Sarah fixed her gaze on me again. I've been thinking a lot lately about us, and I wanted to discuss my thoughts with you. There's a big difference between late and too late. I apologize. I asked Sarah, a day late and $1 less. You were always ready to scream in the rain. Sarah, there's no easy way to say this. I swirled my glass, brushing off the condensation with my thumb and fingers on either side of the glass as I turned it. Just say what's on your mind. I want to try a period of separation. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. What does no mean? Parting would be good for us. This will help me fall in love with you again. Sarah, I don't want you to fall in love with me again. I smiled. It wasn't a smile of triumph or condescension. It was a gentle smile, a smile that can be used to tease a child. Passionately arguing about 10 more minutes of play before bed. I have no patience for your attempts to justify your bad behavior. Sarah, you need the separation so you can. So I'm going to explore things with my replacement. So what came first, your crush on me or giving yourself permission to find my replacement? John, I didn't replace you and I'm not looking for a replacement for you. We have to agree that our marriage has become stale. I think some time apart will help us figure out how we can fix this and get back to where we were. Yes, Sarah, our marriage has stagnated. In fact, it has stagnated it's been a while. And for the last 2 years I've been trying to change this. Unfortunately for us, until recently, there was only one person working on our marriage, but now there are 3. Of course, these 3 are working in different directions. I raised my hand to forestall the objection. I anticipated you'd replace me. Sarah, you cheated on me, and now you want me to agree to an agreement where you can explore this relationship further. You want to separate to explore. It's not about your relationship with Dan, Sarah. I won't let this happen. She was angry, twisting a napkin in her hands and looking at me. She quietly hissed, "You're wrong. I didn't cheat on you with Dan, and he's not your replacement. Are you saying, Sarah, that you haven't had sex with Dan yet, but you definitely cheated on me with him, and you replaced me with him?" She looked awkward. "Keep your voice down, John," she said. "There is no need to broadcast our problems. You already did it. Tell me, who else did you discuss this idea of separation with besides me?" Well, I may have discussed it a couple of times with Dan. Our dishes arrived just then, and the fact that you discuss our marital problems with Dan before you discuss them with me is not deceiving me. Coming to some kind of decision regarding our marriage with Dan, and then telling me about your decision. Isn't that cheating? Dan contributes more to my marriage than I do. She was silent, seething with rage while the dishes were placed in front of us. I winked at the young girl, who looked a little awkward herself. Sarah hissed at me again, saying, "You talk about it very much, John. Dan is my friend, a willing listener and advisor who has been nothing but kind, considerate, and responsive. He's someone I can rely on. He understands me, appreciates me, and doesn't judge me." Our waiter came over to check on our well. "Sarah, you're being vile. You insult my intelligence, our marriage, and our past. You've ruined our future. Dan is smarter than a boiled onion and needs to be peeled. I would have thought you'd be cheating, not deceiving." "Thank you, my dish looks great," I told our waiter as he patiently waited for me to cut into my fillet. Ajig agreed that it was cooked as I asked. "I don't appreciate what you do, John." Sarah clearly felt uncomfortable discussing it. "I'm not going to lie or make things up. You're wrong about Dan. In fact, I think you'd like him. He's very similar to you in many ways. John, I'm glad that in your mind, Dan and I are interchangeable. Sarah, you will never know how much. I think you're mistaken. In every way that matters, Dan and I are nothing alike. I don't get involved in other people's marriages to ruin them. I don't indulge other men's wives, and I certainly won't play along with your games. Sarah, you've been playing games. You've been going to Dan with your problems and victories, discussing our personal life with him, seeking his advice, and communicating with him about everything that you stopped sharing with me. You're a traitor who has not yet given yourself physically, and you make me sick." I looked at her shocked expression, took a bite of the fillet, and chewed it with pleasure. He put down his fork and took a sip of water. I looked up at Sarah, who was looking at me thoughtfully. "I can see this news has upset you, John. I didn't mean to hurt you. Is it true?" "Sarah, you're just out of your mind. You knew full well that cheating on me would hurt me, so you kept it a secret. You didn't mean to hurt me. Well, you weren't trying to keep me from harm either." I pushed my plate away, took out my wallet, and threw $200 on the table. I got up from the table, drank the rest of the whiskey, and said, "I won't allow separation, Sarah." I filed for we got divorced. Sarah was stubborn and kept putting conditions on it. She wouldn't sign the papers or bargain in good faith. She wanted me to meet with her to discuss our marriage. I refused. I told her I'd talk to her after the divorce was final, not a second sooner. I wanted to avoid a contentious divorce so we could be civil to our children and grandchildren, but I wanted a divorce. Eventually, I got one. We split everything. Half and I left Sarah. She sent me a nasty note asking why I gave up on our marriage and didn't fight for her. How do you like this level of madness? In response, I sent her a photo of her pleasuring Dan. She sent me this photo herself 3 days after I left the restaurant as revenge. 2 whole days have passed since our date. I never heard back from her on this topic. I don't go on dates often. I am no Casanova. As long as I carry my ashes around, I'm happy. Sometimes I prefer my own company, or that of my children, grandchildren, and close friends. Initially, my children were on Sarah's side. They didn't understand what she had done that was so bad. I felt that I had failed in my role as a father, after explaining my position to them. I asked them if they would accept it if their spouse clearly stopped loving them and started a relationship with someone else. Would they agree to a separation so that their unfaithful spouse could explore an adulterous relationship without the guilt and inconvenience that a spouse would likely cause? I couldn't accept that. Sarah gave up trying to solve our marital problems. Instead of discussing them with me, she found someone else to confide in and discuss the future of my marriage with. That was just not okay. Eventually, my children came around and our relationship improved, even though their relationship with their mother took a bit of a hit. Sarah and I are both less happy and happier at the same time. We're less happy because we're alone, but we're happier because we've found a way forward on our own. Sarah remarried and divorced. Again, within 2 years of our divorce, she and Dan didn't get married and never slept together except for that one time. I never remarried and retired early, moving to the countryside where I remain to this day. I'm happy that I don't have to waste energy on a woman who doesn't deserve or want it. But I missed the woman I married and what I thought we could share. I thought we could share a life together. I was sad to lose that, but happy to leave a marriage that had drained me of respect and love. We had many good years, but they faded, and Sarah eventually left. I was the one who ended the marriage, but she was the one who fired it. Marriage is hard, divorce is hard, life is hard.